2022 to 2027, fight. And this fight is just getting warmed up. Like, they're going to punish crypto because of FTX, right? When all is said and done, there's going to be some punishing legislation that comes down to try to slow the growth, but it won't kill it, because the good news, if you're in the space, you've already won. I mean, it's not that we're going to win. We've already won. An inauspicious week as we start the FTX bankruptcy hearings this morning, and a lot of pain and suffering the last couple weeks since we were last together. But this too shall pass, shall we say. We'll get through it. But man, it's brutal out there. I mean, I think it certainly changes a lot, and then it actually doesn't change anything. And what I mean by that is FTX wasn't building anything, right? In terms of it wasn't a protocol itself. I mean, FTT nonsense aside, but it wasn't building a base layer of the new monetary system like Bitcoin. It wasn't building a user interface for all of DeFi like Ethereum or others. So from that perspective, it was a bank, so it's essentially an exchange or a brokerage firm or a bank that was a CeFi solution, right? The transition from TradFi to DeFi that unfortunately was run by really bad guys and gals and committed major fraud. The industry is very interconnected, particularly at the leverage level. And so the unwinding of the leverage and people who depended on FTX or Alameda being truthful about the assets they owned or the liabilities they had, turns out they couldn't rely on that. And in some ways, it argues for faster movement toward the DeFi future that I think we all embrace, which is we don't want to trust. We want to have truth. And I even dubbed the blockchain era the truth net. We want to replace trust with truth. And the banks have had an 800-year run. I like to say it's over, but I think it's going to extend a little bit, because I think what this event does is it slows down that transition. You can't ban something that's decentralized or
censorship resistant,
disruptive, distributed is the word I'm searching for. So you can't ban it, because it's like squeezing the air in a balloon. The air just goes someplace else. But what you can do is you can make the on-ramps and off-ramps really hard to navigate. So we will still take off. It's just that the banks definitely bombed the runway. And then why I say not at all is, at the end of the day, well, $10 billion is a lot of money. Don't get me wrong. $10 billion to steal or blow through bad trading is a lot of money. And the collateral on top of that makes it orders of magnitude worse than that. But at the end of the day, we're talking about $1 trillion asset, which is digital assets, broadly speaking. 10 billion isn't really that much. And I think, and I get some pushback on this, but I think the Mt. Gox event, to me, was a bigger deal, in the sense that there weren't a lot of options back then. I mean, there was Mt. Gox and a couple, little tiny exchanges, kind of like the early days of ISPs before AOL. There wasn't a lot of options. And so that was a near-death event. But we survived, and we built, and we thrived. And there are 500 exchanges. Yes, this was arguably the second largest. Never really was, because it was fake. But it's, there are lots of other exchanges out there. I do worry that we still have this, I think, unnecessary and I think detrimental tribalism and snarkiness back and forth about, I told you CeFi was all a fraud and a Ponzi. You need to burn it all down. Now, guys, no, the industry need platforms on which we can use these assets. If the only thing you're supposed to do with digital assets is Bitcoin, put it on cold storage and bury it in the backyard, we can all just go home. We got that. That's called gold. I am. And I'm bullish because this is inevitable technology. It's as inevitable as the internet. And look, I lived through, old, I lived through the 2000, 2001, 2002 tech wreck. And everybody was like, see, this is it. I told you this is a big fraud and Ponzi's, and this is the end of this, and the technology is useless, and it'll never be more important than a fax machine. And look, pets.com and Webvan and all these terrible companies, Digital Island, terrible companies. Yeah, there were some bad companies. It wasn't even that they were bad companies. They were just poorly run. They needed more tech. Banks don't want competition from DeFi and crypto. So what are they doing? They're paying regulators to thump. And, I think we might have talked about this last time, right? The Gandhi quote, first, which he didn't say, and I wish I could remember who actually said it, but first they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, then you win. 2022 to 2027, fight. And this fight is just getting warmed up. Like, they're going to punish crypto because of FTX. Right? When all is said and done, there's going to be some punishing legislation that comes down to try to slow the growth, but it won't kill it, because the good news, if you're in the space, you've already won. I mean, it's not that we're going to win. We've already won. And so why am I wildly bullish? I'm wildly bullish because I see the world that I've lived in my whole life, financial services, is wasteful, bloated, overbuilt, old, right? 70-plus-year-old technology to transfer money. I have to make a wire transfer today. It's not that the bear market, it's not that crypto winter extends. I do think we're in crypto spring, but the bear market could continue. And that's kind of what FTX is. It was a big old storm. Sam, bad guy. Caroline, bad person. Bad people do bad things. Hate the players, not the game. It's not the game that's the problem, it's the players. If GBTC has to liquidate, that will be very bad in the short run. I mean, like, really bad. And look, it's right in the crosshairs right now. I mean, they have $1 billion hole caused by FTX and Genesis, and Barry's trying desperately to raise capital. But if he's forced to actually liquidate the trust to close the discount, that could be ugly, because that puts 600,000 plus Bitcoin on the market, and that'll, I don't even want to say how low we go then, and everything else would follow. I'm not a Tether fudster. I don't really believe there's no there. Do I believe they have 100 cents on the dollar? Probably not. I probably don't, actually. So, is that the fact that they're in the Bahamas along with Sam makes me nervous, honestly. The fact that they met the day after, it all came out makes me nervous. They tracked the guy's tail number to the Bahamas where he met with Sam. So that bugs me. So if that were to, seize, that would be ugly. So those are the two earthquakes that I'm worried about. In terms of am I buying Bitcoin here? The answer is no. Talking a lot about it. In fact, I get a text just about every day from the other guys on my team saying, now, like, look, I'm not a day trader. I'm a DCA person. I like to, dollar cost average. And I do believe that everyone in this space should pick a percentage that you want to own, 1%, 2%, 3%, 5%, whatever the number is, whatever you're comfortable with. And you shouldn't buy it all at once. You should buy it over time. So, I don't look at the price to decide. I say, okay, I set that I'm going to buy some, this week and next week and the next week and the next month and the next month. Me personally, most everything I do is through my funds. We have something called the Risk Managed Bitcoin Fund. I put money in that owns Bitcoin. When it's trending up, it goes to cash. When it's trending down, today it's sitting in cash. So at some point it's going to turn and buy a bunch. I have another fund that we call the Innovation Fund. Again, it was launched way back when. It bought over a period of weeks, and I own a big chunk of that. And then I own pieces of all of our venture funds. So, and I'm technically not supposed to trade, even though it's interesting, even though Bitcoin is not a security, been deemed not a security by the SEC, because I manage a Bitcoin futures ETF called CRYP, they made me change my code of ethics so that Bitcoin is now a security. So I'm restricted on my on my personal trading, which I think is weird, but they're the SEC, so they can do what they want. So, I say thank you. May I have another? Most people know, we made and lost a lot of money in Solana. I still think there's there. I struggle with the one thing about Solana is, well, there's two things. One, it tends to go out, which I don't like. And two, it's not 100% accurate. So there are certain use cases that you just can't use. If I'm rendering a game and it's got a little glitch, I don't really care. I mean, I was playing Pokemon Go with my son last night and my whole thing glitched. I'm like, okay, it happens. And that's not even on chain. That's just, typical piece of software. But glitches in gaming, that happens. If I got an NFT that doesn't render perfectly at first, okay, no problem. But if I'm doing accounting, I got to have 100%, not 99.999. I need 100%. So then I probably lean toward Avalanche, and I like them. Polkadot and Cosmos, I think you can make really good cases why they could be winners.